Well, this is going to be a banner of a video. Most of you are not going to be able to handle it. Those who can are probably going to have their viewpoint or perspective change on the law of assumption, the law of attraction, manifestation concepts, whatever the heck you want to call it. If you don't know who I am, my name's Tim Grimes. I've written multiple books about the law of assumption and the law of attraction and how we can integrate it into our lives in a successful, fulfilling way. I've also had the gratifying experience of working with hundreds of clients over the years, doing that with them, which is a wonderful thing. And it's a very different thing than we see on social media when we hear these ideas discussed. And that's what this video is going to be about today. If you're new here, this is going to be you might be shocked by what I'm about to say. And I'm going to swear a lot, so just warning you. There's plenty of videos and many podcast episodes where I don't swear, but this is not going to be one of those. You are getting the wool pulled over your eyes when it comes to most of these manifestation ideas, in my opinion. I have been interested in these ideas, trying to integrate them into my own life since 2013, 2014. I found out about Neville, first found out about Neville and started applying his advice in 2014. As I said, I've worked with many people over the years in regards to applying this advice. And I often say that what I talk about starts where most people on YouTube or Reddit end. And a big reason for that is just because I have a lot more experience with this stuff. And I also have a lot more life experience. You know, I'm 44 years old. I've been into spirituality since I was a teenager. And I have been trying my best to live a peaceful, fulfilled life using various spiritual principles, you know, since my whole adulthood, which spans, you know, at this point, almost 30 years, right? And so when I first came into these law of assumption, Neville type of ideas, I was very excited, as most people are. But even then, I think I looked at them with a rather like, all right, I want to integrate this stuff to the best I can. But as Neville said, and as I knew before from being into spirituality and having met many great spiritual teachers and having lived at a Zen center and, you know, spoken to many quote unquote Zen masters, right? You have to test it. You have to test it and see how it works for you. And I tested it, and I'm still testing it to this day. And the conclusions and hypotheses I've come up with from testing it sound vastly different than virtually anybody else on YouTube talking about this stuff. In my opinion, most of this LOA stuff, and first, one of my conclusions, guys, and I'm pretty steadfast about this isn't much of a hypothesis. The law of attraction and the law of assumption are the same fucking thing, all right? They're all the same thing. One of my conclusions is that most of this stuff is just practical advice that is underappreciated psychology, described usually in a spiritual way, using spiritual language, metaphysical language. But most, if not all of these ideas can be described psychologically rather soberly. And the most influential teacher in my life in regards to understanding that has been Emile Coué, who brilliantly describes the psychology behind basically all of the law of attraction and law of assumption. And again, he might not cover all of it, but he covers at least 90% of it in sober terms. And, you know, his colleague, Charles Baudouin, wrote an amazing book called Suggestion and Autosuggestion, which is a sober explanation of all of these ideas. Things like state akin to sleep or contention. It's explained there. around like 1920, okay? You know, a good 2 decades before Neville was talking about this stuff. And this sobriety, like I said, I was always pretty sober when it came to these ideas. You know, I encountered Neville, had some success with his ideas, wrote about his ideas with the encouragement of some people I was speaking with at the time about these concepts. Wrote about them as early as Relax More, Try Less in 2015. If you read Relax More, Try Less, and links to all my books will be in the description, including a link to a free copy of my book, The Law of Attraction Simplified. But if you read Relax More, Try Less, even within my first year or two of getting into Neville, it becomes very clear that my take is just much more sober than most people who are talking about this stuff today. The main thing I say in Relax More, Try Less is that if you relax more and try less, if you feel more inwardly relaxed during your day as your default, not only do you feel better, but better things tend to happen to you. That might sound very simple, but it's simple to say. It's much harder to do. But that, in my opinion, is most of Neville. That's the main thing I've been able to take away in test of Neville's that's actually worked for me. And this is the thing. You only need to take one or two things away from these teachings to have it change your life. That one thing I was able to take away from Neville, relaxation is directly linked to my level of fulfillment, which is directly linked to the outer experiences I have in some way. That was enough to change my life profoundly. You know, to change my relationships with loved ones, to change my my work, to eventually change where I live, you know, to help me create a family. Relax more, try less. So even back in 2015, I was very sober talking about this stuff. But here's the thing. In the 10 years since, I've become a lot more sober. And that's why I often say when I talk about these concepts, it's almost like I'm speaking a different language compared to most people on here. And the language I'm speaking is common sense, integrity, and the golden rule. Treat others as you yourself would want to be treated. Which, again, in my opinion, is what most of these new thought type of teachings boil down to. They're actually very, like, you could say almost traditional Christian teachings at their core a lot of the time. And the difference in terms of how I speak about it on YouTube and when I coach people is it's about doing that. It's not about the fancy language and, living in the end or being high vibe, high frequency, or everyone is you pushed out, or all these cool catchphrases and great phrases when they were first said. That's fucking great, guys. We got to do it. And it's only, I don't know, 100 times, 1,000 times harder to do than it is to say. And this is something a lot of you aren't going to like, but most of you are just saying it and not doing it. Because when you start doing it, you are humbled. And you realize you are fucking up all the time. You are sinning, missing the mark, as Neville used to like to say. And it's a humbling experience that you learn from. As I talk about in the Law of Attraction Simplified, you fall off the horse a lot. And you have to learn to dust yourself off, take a few deep breaths, which sometimes, as I was saying in a recent video, can take a couple weeks to take those figurative few deep breaths and get back on the horse and ride. And as you mature in your practice of these spiritual or law of attraction, law of assumption principles, perhaps it won't often take you as long to get back on that horse. Oh, this stuff is sober. And a big difference, I think, with me compared to most others on YouTube, not to toot my own horn, because if it's not clear, I have a ton of flaws and am just as fucked up as everybody else is. The big difference with me is I don't try to hide that. Who you see in the car right now is who I am. Obviously, you can't get the full picture. This is just me in the car. You don't know me. But I try to convey who I am. There is not a difference between who I am right here in this car and who I am when I walk in the house and talk to my wife or talk to my kids. This is who I am. If you were my friend in real 3D life, this is who I am. When I coach and counsel people, this is who I am. And this is a little bit of a truth bomb. I don't think most people on YouTube making videos are who they are when they get off camera. There's not that natural alignment and integrity. And that's the big difference. And this is not about me. This is about you. I want you for you if you want to be the same way. To not put on the robes of spiritual bypassing and say, oh, this is, I'm into these concepts. This is who I am. This is how I'm presenting myself. And then you fucking get off camera, take off those robes in your life, and all of a sudden you're a mess again. I want you to embrace the mess that you are and realize there's nothing wrong with that. That embracing that and working with that and through that is usually part of the process, if not all of the process. The techniques aren't going to do shit for you guys. Techniques are great. They are tools, but they're not going to save you. And neither are any of these YouTube teachers, including me. You got to do the work. Why I like coaching people is that I put the ball in your court. I say, I can't fucking save you. You got to save yourself. Here are some things that might help you save you. And I like sitting with the person and helping them see that, recognizing that, giving them the space and the safety to feel free to actually recognize for themselves what that is. It's the law of attraction. It's the law of assumption. You want to get conceptual? Get as conceptual as you want. It's not very impressive. Sorry. It's not very impressive. You can read some of my books or, some of my Reddit posts. I can get conceptual too. It doesn't fucking matter. I'm still a shithead. Everyone's a shithead. Glory should go to God, not to man, when it comes to these spiritual concepts. At least that's my opinion. I think a lot of great spiritual teachers have said that before. Glory to God, not to man. There is such a disconnect between people online making videos or commenters or Reddit posters talking about this stuff and how their lives actually are. At least the vast majority of the time. And that is the wool being pulled over your eyes that you do not have to allow to be there. Life is life. I'm in my garage right now. I think I hear a blue jay in the background. I don't know if you heard that. For some of you birders out there, maybe you can recognize that bird call. This is this. This is enough. When we sit back and relax, figuratively speaking, we realize God is here right now. The universe, supply, source. It's all here right now. And we can recognize that more. That is the beginning and also the end of the spiritual search. It's just recognizing you're here right now. I got an email from some guy, I think this morning actually, and talking about some situation they were going through, and it was like a difficult situation. And my answer to stuff like that, and most of the questions I'm asked, honestly, on by YouTube commenters, is good. This is where the work starts. People are selling you the sensationalism, the quick results, all this stuff. You can sometimes get quick results. You can also get slow results or no results. I am here to talk about when you run into difficulty. Because that's when the real work starts. That's when these ideas truly get interesting. And that's when we can use our imagination differently and look at what is happening differently, including what is happening right now. Because as I said, right now, in this moment, you are okay. And what's difficult for most of us, including me, is recognizing that. But the more we recognize that and build our life from there, and start worrying about tomorrow as opposed to worrying about tomorrow today, doing that more and more, the more we integrate these principles in our life. And in general, the more gratifying and grounded our life becomes, and the more fulfilled and happy we become. But this usually is not dramatic, guys. It's just your life. Like me right now in my garage in my car. I'm happy to be here. And I'm hoping you're happy to be here too. If you want to watch some more videos, many more can be found below. Talk to you soon.